Hello there. This video is going to show you how to use the pivot tables feature in Microsoft Excel to create frequency distribution tables that include raw frequencies, relative frequencies or percentages, and cumulative frequencies. Also, how to use the pivot tables or pivot charts feature rather to create a histogram, pie chart, and bar chart. So before we get started, I want to just explain a little bit about this data. So you can see here, each one of these columns represents a different variable, and then each one of these rows represents a different person. And this data really represents people who were surveyed about their shoe purchases, specifically Nike versus Adidas. And not only did they measure how many pairs of shoes they have, then how many pairs of Nikes, how many pairs of Adidas, how many pairs were purchased this year. They also asked them about their brand preference, which one's more comfortable, which one has the best advertising, which one has the best appearance, which one has the most reasonable price. They also looked at their level of activity, their gender or sex, their age, and their annual income. And as typically is presented in Excel, you'll see that each one of the columns represents a variable, and each one of the rows, with the exception of this top row that has the different variable labels, all of these rows represents each individual person in our sample. And you can see that in this data, we have 100 people in the sample. It goes down to 101, but that's just because our first row here has the labels in it. So now that you're more familiar with the data, let's get started on creating some of the tools and graphs in Excel. So the first thing that you want to do is create a frequency distribution table for number of Nike right here. And there's several ways that you could go about doing this, but I'm going to show you the way that you can do it using pivot tables, and I think that is much easier than doing it manually with the COUNTIF function. So the first thing you want to do is go up to this top bar up here and click Insert, Pivot Table, and since I already had that data selected, it just automatically selected it here, but from this point you could select the data again and just click it here. I want you to put this on a new worksheet, so make sure that that is selected and then just click OK. Now before we get started, I want you to label this worksheet so that when you submit your work I can find it easily. So you just right click here, click Rename, and then just type in, just do Nike for now. All right, now we're ready to get started. Now you notice I clicked outside of this little region here, so the pivot table thing went away, but you can just click here to get it back. Also, if you find that you're trying to work with the pivot table and it's not there, typically you can go over here, go under Pivot Table Tools, Analyze, click Field List, and that'll also make this pop up right here. I'm going to make this a little bigger too. All right, so at this point, we just want to create a frequency distribution table. That's where we're going to start. So what you do is you drag number of Nike down to rows, and then you drag number of Nike down to values. And make sure that right here under values, it says count of number of Nike. If it does not, click the little arrow next to it, go to value field settings, and select count. So now we have the beginnings of a frequency distribution table. If you see blank here, just go to the little box with the little arrow pointing down next to row labels and go down and uncheck blank. So that's looking better. Let's go ahead and label this more appropriately as well. So instead of saying row labels, this should say number of Nike. And then this right here should say number of customers who have that many pairs of Nikes. You can also, because you can see we can't really see all this, double click right in between the A and the B. See that double-sided arrow there? And it'll auto-fit that contents. Let's move this down. All right, so we have a frequency distribution table. So from here, we can create a histogram to show the number of Nikes as well. And it's bothering me right now. Maybe I'm just a little bit obsessive about my formatting, but I would like to have everything centered, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. So just highlighting it, make sure you're under the Home tab and center it. All right. It's also worth noting that if you copied and pasted this into Microsoft Word, this weird little filter option wouldn't be there and it would look really nice and clean. So now let's go ahead and create the histogram. So once you're inside of the pivot table, you can go up to Analyze and you'll see the pivot charts options right here. So click that. And we're going to go with a column. Now you'll see that right now there's some problems with this. First of all, it's not a histogram. These bars need to be touching because number of Nikes is a ratio variable. When you have interval or ratio data, you have to use a histogram, not a bar chart. So let's go ahead and make sure that your graph is selected. Go up to, I believe we want to do design. Go to quick layout and then choose layout 8, which is the one that has those bars touching. Now the nice thing about this layout is it gives us our axis titles as well. But if we had a situation where our axis titles were not popping up, you can add those over here with the add chart element feature, axis titles, horizontal and vertical. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We'll get rid of this thing that says total. Then along this x-axis here, that represents the different number of Nikes. So we're going to put number of Nike right here. And then along the y-axis, this represents the frequencies. We're going to put number of customers. So make sure that you're following along, you're doing all the things I'm doing, and that your final histogram looks like that. Now, just like the table, if you want to copy and paste this into Word, it would look very nice, and it wouldn't have these weird filtering options there. And from there, you could kind of choose whatever design you want, whatever colors you want. You can make it look all sorts of different ways. Lots of options. Okay, so we've got our frequency distribution table for number of Nikes. We've got a histogram for number of Nikes. Now let's create a relative and a relative cumulative frequency distribution table for number of Nikes. So we're going to copy this. I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and then just paste it down here. Control V to paste. There we go. Now we're going to play with this a little bit. So instead of just having the number of customers here, let's go ahead and grab number of Nike and drag it down to values. Do it one more time. And we're going to have our relative frequency and then our cumulative relative frequency right here. So let's go ahead and change this to relative number of customers. And cumulative relative number of customers. All right, so let's kind of stretch these out so we can see the whole thing. Now you don't have to go through and do the math for this. Pivot tables are really smart. They can do it for you. So if you go here, you highlight this and right click, show values as percent of grand total. So it's going to take this 27 and divide it by 100, and this 27 and divide it by 100, and this 20 and divide it by 100, all on its own. So again, show values as percent of grand total. Now you've got your percentages. Now here, if we do the cumulative relative number of customers, we can do this. Right click, show values as percent running total for number of Nikes. Now you'll see this does what you would do. I've shown you how to do by hand, where you take, all right, 27%, and then 27 plus 27 is 54, and then 54 plus 20 is 74, and then 74 plus 9 is 83, all the way down. And this is really nice because here you can know what percentile people are in based on how many Nikes they have. So if somebody had 5 pair of Nikes, you know they are in the 93rd percentile for Nike ownership in this sample, meaning 93% or fewer of people in the sample, 93% of people in the sample have 5 or fewer pairs of Nikes. Also, if someone had 1 pair of Nikes, they're in the 54th percentile. 54% of the sample have 1 or fewer Nikes. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so now let's create a pie chart. And to do the pie chart, we don't want to have all of this stuff here. We really just want number of Nikes and then the relative frequency or the percent. So I'm going to create a new table. Control C to copy. If you can't do the Control C thing, you can also go up here and hit copy. Go down here. Control V to paste or click paste. And I'm just going to convert these back into relative frequencies. So again, show values as percent of grand total. Now from here, I can make a really beautiful pie chart pretty easily by going up to the pivot table tools, clicking analyze, pivot chart. Now I'm going to select pie chart because now we're looking at percentages. Just click OK, and boom, there you go. It's looking good. If you want to add some percentages within this, you can play around with the design tools under the pivot charts, and you can go to Add Chart Element, and you can have the data labels, so it'll show you the percentages. There, maybe do that because I think that's going to work the best. Yeah, that looks good. So I'll have you do this with the best fit right here. This makes it nice because you can see the percentages right there. So if you were presenting this data, you didn't have the table, this would be the ideal way to show that. Here, instead of total, that's not very descriptive, we could say number of Nikes in the sample. Maybe move that up a little bit. There you go. It's looking beautiful. And you'll see under the design tools, there's tons of different options you could do. You can play with the colors, kind of do whatever you want, but just make sure that whenever you make a pie chart, your colors are unique enough to where the key is easy to understand relative to the pie chart, so you know which slice represents which variable. So from this, we could see that for the most part, people own between 0 and 1 Nike pair of Nikes. And you see that here as well, which is kind of neat. And overall, very few people have 7 to 8 pairs of Nikes. All right, so now let's go ahead and shift focus to looking at a ordinal variable, which is level of activity. So we were able to do a histogram here because we were looking at a ratio variable, number of Nikes. But now let's look at a situation where we don't have a ratio variable. We have an ordinal variable, level of activity. So let's go ahead, make sure you're back in your data. You can go ahead and highlight level of activity if you like. Then go to Insert, Pivot Table. It's already selected. New Worksheet is the option that we want. Click OK. Go ahead and label this. And if you double click it, you don't have to right click and rename. It'll highlight it for you. And you can just put level of activity. So make sure that you click inside this table. And just like we did before, we're going to click and drag level of activity to rows. Then we're going to click and drag level of activity to values. Make sure that count is selected. If count is not there, you click on this, value field settings, go to count. So here, let's kind of fix this because this is problematic. Right now, it is not really in order, if you see here. So let's first get rid of the blank. Okay. Then let's go ahead and make it go low, moderate, high. So I'm going to just see this little black arrow, click that. And then go here where you see the green box around. Go kind of the edge of that, and you'll see like a four-cornered arrow pop up with any luck. There you go. That means you're ready to click and drag it up, low. We need moderate in the middle. So click here to highlight moderate. Four-cornered arrow. Click, hold down, drag up, low, moderate, and high. That's what I'm talking about. So now we just have frequency distributions, but we also want to have those relative frequencies. So let's keep this one and then maybe create a separate one so that we can do a bar chart and pie chart separately. So let's click Control C to copy, or again, you could go home, copy. Then right below it, Control V to paste. Now for this one, we don't want it to be the count, we want it to be the relative frequency. So we just highlight this data, right click, show values as % of grand total. Those are our relative frequencies, or our percentages. Let's also fix these labels. So we don't want it to say row labels. We want it to say level of activity. Whoa, that was a mess. Activity, there you go. Let's see if it'll let me copy that label and paste it down here so I don't have to type it twice. Nope. Maybe it'll let me do it if I do it up here. Totally. Awesome. Backspace a little bit. All right. Now this one is number of customers. And here you could put relative frequency of customers, or if you want to simplify, you could put percentage of customers. That might work a little bit better. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a bar chart for these frequencies here. So we go here, make sure you click in this table. Pivot table tools will pop up, click Analyze, Pivot Chart. Columns already selected, and then just click OK. And you'll see that as it's supposed to be, Along the x-axis, your values are listed from lowest to highest, left to right. And since this is an ordinal variable, you can see that that's meaningful. This is also a normal distribution, which is pretty cool. Roughly normal, at least. And this axis looks good as far as the numbers go, but we don't have any labels here. So let's go ahead and make sure your chart's selected. Go to Design, Add Chart Element, and let's add those axis titles. So our vertical and horizontal. So here we're going to put level of activity. And over here we will put number of customers. All right. Beautiful. Bar chart. Let's get rid of this little total thing too. We don't need a key. We only have one thing going on here. All right, so there's your bar chart. We can get rid of this too. And there you have it. Again, if you copied and pasted this into Word, these wouldn't be there, and you could play with the formatting and make it beautiful if you were, doing a technical report or something like that. All right, now let's take a look, and I need to stretch this out. It's driving me crazy. I also want to center these. It's bugging me. There we go. All right, now let's make a pie chart based on the relative frequencies, or the percentages. Now, you're welcome to do bar charts that display percentages, but typically, if you're looking at percentages, a pie chart is the best way to go. So I'm going to click in here, go to Analyze, Pivot Chart. This time, pie. Okay. I'm going to scoot it down a little bit. All right. And I like to have the data labels in here. So I'm going to go make sure it's selected. Design, Add Chart Element, Data Labels. This time we can get away with doing it in the center. And I like that a lot. Looks good. And just to be descriptive, get rid of this total and put level of activity. So here we can see that the majority of the sample had a moderate level of activity. You see that here as well and in the tables. And then the second most popular level of activity is low, and then relatively few people in this sample have a high level of activity. All right, so that's all I have for you for this. I hope that you are excited to learn about these tools. They make displaying your data in a beautiful way much easier. Just make sure that you always consider the best practices for your axes so that you don't misrepresent your data, and that you always select the appropriate chart based on the nature of your data. So remember, interval ratio data, histogram, nominal ordinal data, bar chart, and if you're displaying frequent or percentages, pie chart. All right, thanks.